Alright, we're going to jump right in. I'm going to be discussing the stories of two different hip hop albums. The first of which is going to be Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City. The second is going to be J. Cole's For Your Eyes Only. The first album I'll be discussing is Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City. The way that this whole album plays out is that there's audio recordings at the ends of songs, and then the next song it'll go into more detail about what that recording was about. He'll start telling a story about a specific event, and that's how like the whole album plays out. And when the album first starts, it's a recording of a few gentlemen saying a prayer, and the end of the album gets you to that spot. So the beginning is like the end. I don't know if you've ever seen Memento, but it's kind of like that. It just starts with the end, and you see how it happens up until that point. Things he discusses in this album, he talks about uh, drugs, alcoholism is a big one he talks about in the song Swimming Pools. A lot of people listen to that song, they like to dance, they like to vibe out to it, but a lot of people don't understand, it's about him struggling with alcoholism. Guns, people dying, people getting shot, him seeing people get shot, him seeing dead bodies, him not being associated or him not being a member of Bloods or Crips, and so people, they treat him badly on both sides, Bloods and the Crips. They're not nice. That's a weird way to say it, but yeah, they're not nice to him. They beat him up. He talks about his friend getting shot, him getting beat up when he's going to meet a girl. Just a lot of real intense things. So then we go on to J. Cole's album, For Your Eyes Only. Now, this one, spoiler alert, the whole album is a message that his friend wanted J. Cole to give to his daughter, to his friend's daughter, not J. Cole's daughter. Throughout the album, it talks about how J. Cole and his friend grew up, how they lived, the things they had to deal with. Same with Kendrick Lamar's, they both talk about growing up in rough neighborhoods, grew up around gangbangers. Kendrick didn't partake. Well, he did, but he didn't shoot people, he didn't sell drugs, he didn't even really do drugs unless, sometimes he was peer pressured into doing it, and he talks about that. But J. Cole talks about how his friend was doing some stuff, if you know what I'm saying. He's out here selling drugs, people are dying, things like that. The whole album, there are points where it goes back and forth from J. Cole's perspective to his friend's perspective, most of which are his friend's perspective. Then when it gets to the very last song of the album, For Your Eyes Only, that's pretty much when everything comes together with the album and you understand what it's about. He talks about how his friend called him up one day and told J. Cole that he didn't think he was going to live for much longer, and he wanted J. Cole to make his story into an album pretty much, and he wanted him to give it to his daughter when she was ready. And so the last song, it hits real close to home. It's a because once he tells the story, then it goes to J. Cole's perspective, and he starts telling his friend's daughter about how much he loved and respected him. Talked about how he was a real guy, not because he sold drugs or because he killed people or because he was the first to lose his virginity or anything like that. He's a real guy because he loved his daughter. So yeah, it's just some deep stuff. And also, between these two albums, they're both telling stories about things that weren't really told up until a little bit more recently, but it's mostly things that a lot of people would just be like, oh, that's happening over there, it's not happening to me, I don't know anybody living like that, so I'm just going to ignore it, not think about it. The news, they didn't really talk about this type of stuff. I would say the first to really bring most of this stuff to light would be NWA, with the things they talked about, F the police mainly. Got a lot of people thinking. And yeah, so in closing, a lot of people nowadays, they may make a song or two that tells a real story, but for the most part, like 50% of the rappers nowadays, and I'll just say music in general, are just making music for, the club or whatever, for people to dance to, that people don't really listen to. They just like, they hear the beat and then like words being spoken, but they're not really listening to the lyrics. They're just dancing and vibing out. But there's still these unique people like Cole and K Dot that are telling stories and that are really getting people thinking. And so that's why I decided to listen to these albums in depth and talk about this, because it's not really something people talk about much, and I want to talk about it. I want other people to talk about it. Thank you very much.